It's late here, but I promised to answer a question from someone very special and very wise. Their question was, Africa can offer us so much. Africa can contribute so much. But Africa has to inform our generations about her priceless inheritance. Please, tell us what you think we can learn from you. Many of us are ready. I was totally in awe reading that comment from a special friend, Christoph Wagner Brauswetter. Unfortunately, my time did not allow for an immediate answer. Thus I explain that I will refer to him, and by this I do. In all cultures, we have learned to honor and respect the grandparents, for their wisdom is priceless. Africa is the cradle of all nations, all people, of all of the magnificent branches of the tree of humanity. In all nations, we learn to honor the parents, and so to the grandparents. The wealth of Africa is not just the wealth of the soil or the wealth of the people, but the wealth of the wisdom of age of that grandmother. Many of great empires became during the existence of history, from the time of the gods to this time of the close and the start of the new tomorrow. Solomon's wisdom has not yet been learned. He said in that wisdom, there is nothing new under the sun. This I say. There was nothing new under the sun, except now the extent of mankind's arrogance and disrespect for that what really matters. Over the generations, we have seen great empires rise and great empires fall. Each of those empires would not imagine that one day they will fall and no longer be, just as today. But with the rise and fall of all inside and outside of Africa, inside and outside of the southern world that was the first that created the all, one consistency remained: the people thereof, that yet until this day has retained this sense of culture, traditions, value as family, even their foods, their way of life. And though it may seem simple to many, primitive to many, going backwards to many, remember, Empires rose and empires fell, and yet they are still there, unchanging. Regardless of the trials and tribulations of life, regardless of all that has been faced, be it pleasure or pain, the population grows. And the internal sense of tradition, values, community, and respect as a collective is unchanging. Africa, as all of the South, is massive. And all share that common shared sense of traditions and culture, all equally as a collective that is unchanging. I marvel at times to think that were we to take the map of the world nations, the entire so referred third world encompasses the entire ancient world of the South, the region of grandmamas. And that region is suffering. From grandmama's house to grandmama's table. And yet, you will see the smiles on the face of the people. The joy and respect of culture. Because those things have more value because of its longevity than those of a system of things that easily fall, because that is perishable. We all need to remember our root and change the collective thinking by going back into our past in order that we can move forward as a collective unity, recognizing and knowing, understanding our common shared ancestry, our common shared inheritance, our common shared purpose and goals of existence, because it is no longer there. Do not look upon people of the South, of different cultures, or their food is like this because of poverty, or their house is like this because of this. It's not. Though poverty have a role to play in many things, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, the way of life has not changed. The circumstances have changed. The people there live longer. They're healthier. Do not see the sufferings of droughts and all of these things as the definition of who Africa and the world of the South is. It is not. It's just the indication of circumstances, some within manpower that we can change, and some outside of mankind's power that we can do our best to protect ourselves from the totality of the impact. the values and the culture honored, respected that our collective ancestors fought and died for, we have forgotten. Today one buy a house and the first we do is to put a fence. Whether outside that fence is our brother or sister or cousin or neighbor that is homeless, it does not matter. The fence is there. That fence is not only that of the physical fence, but also the mental one. Within the villages and the regions and the homes, the districts and provinces of the South, you will find that people will make a more collective effort as a community to stand by each other, to help each other. Do not define Africa by civil unrest and wars. It's 54 countries, over 1.1 billion people, and a landmass so great. One is incapable of trying to imagine mentally the extent of it. Do not define our people by the economical or the political definitions of this time, but by our ancestral, tribal, cultural, and traditional character, because that defines who we are. What do I think is needed to be learned? We need to learn to remember that we are all of one and the same cradle. And if we need to find unity, if we need to unify as a world and as a people, then we must go back in order to go forward. Not go back in a way of life and circumstances, but go back so we are refreshed and we recalled who we are, our ancestry, our tradition, our culture as a unity, as a people. We are one. Nubia was the firstborn. Nubia gave rise to daughter Asia. And Asia, those beautiful ones born too of Africa, Caucasia. 3 children of one and the same cradle. Grandmama was forgotten. It is written in all the sacred books, honor thy father and thy mother, that all may go well with you. How much so from the mother of all mothers, the nation of the South. We must go back so we find again that root passion and compassion within us. We must look well and examine the positive. Put aside the negative in order that you can see clear what you must see and not be distracted by what is meant as a distraction. Remember, when your hand is cut, you bleed. When my hand is cut, I bleed too. Africa is bleeding. There's 7 billion people on the planet. And the majority of them are going more and more to the economical standards of the third world. It's frightening for some, and to others it's not. They're accustomed to it. We have got to take stock of ourselves. We have got to start looking to the south, the cradle of the parents, with different eyes. Because all came, all grew. Empires stood, empires fell. But that one consistent point and region remained. Holding on till today, its culture at its root, its traditions at its roots, even its food at its roots. Learn from it. We speak in parables in Africa. It's the culture and the people of the parables. Within that, there is much to learn and understand. Enlightenment to be found. For it's the language and the wisdom of the grandmama. We are one people, one root, many branches. In time long gone, one part of the lines went up over the Iranian plateau, extending the settlements. When the first ice age fell, they were caught by the Indus and that region to keep the history of our history very short because it's so many thousands of pages of our archives. From those that survived that first change in the weather, Asia, the children born thereafter was and became features slightly changed over the generation. The part of their lines that went to the north, with the second fall of the Ice Age, was caught in the Caucasus. Not many survived. Some returned down, according to our history, as we know it, not as is told to us. Some return, the few, or I can better say some of their generations. They too would change, lighter, features different. That's why you see the difference in the complexions within the thrones and houses of old, of our house, in times past. One day that was caught in that Caucasus region, the great-great-grandchildren of the generations born of them formed what is now the Caucasian nation. It's grandmama's great-grandchildren. Humanity is one. To find oneself, to understand the priceless inheritance. Take the journey back in order that humanity itself can move forward. Now on unified grounds, as a unified people, with a unified purpose, for a unified world. and our generations of children to come as Earth's global family and the earthly flowers of heaven. Thank you for your question, Christoph.